Hello and welcome to My Baseball History. I'm your host, Dan Wallach. My Baseball History is a long-form interview podcast where each episode I'll talk to someone new who has some sort of association to the game of baseball. No matter who I talk to, we'll talk about how they fell in love with baseball, how their career started, and how they got to be where they are today. Today's episode is brought to you by author Jay Wigley and his new book, How Retro Sheet Saved Baseball History. Jay has been a longtime listener and supporter of the podcast. Even though he lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, he made the trip to Cleveland last summer to be in attendance for the live taping I hosted at League Park, which turned into the episode with Larry Lester and Stephanie Liscio. Jay has told me that he's even used recommendations I've made on the podcast while he's been traveling, making it a point to go visit Yaxie's, the bar I used to work at when he was in Wrigleyville for a Cubs game. If this is a new recommendation for you, ask for Leah and make sure you get the wings while you're there. But Jay's support of the show is not why I'm telling you about his book. I hope after nearly 5 full seasons of this show, you know me enough by now to know that I'm not going to vouch for something unless I actually believe in it. And after reading Jay's new book, which was officially released April 3rd, 2026, I can tell you that it's wonderful. Jay's earliest baseball memory is of the scoreboard animations at the Astrodome in the summer of 1972, and he first discovered Retro Sheet in 1996. Like many of us when we first saw Retro Sheet, he wondered how such a thing was even possible. After spending years researching and writing his book, now he knows. Building on momentum that had begun with Bill James's Project Score Sheet in 1984, Dr. David Smith, a biology professor at the University of Delaware, brought together a host of like-minded individuals to compile an accessible database of statistical information previously unavailable to the general public. Smith founded Retro Sheet in 1989 with the box scores of 7,000 games in his Delaware basement. But there were more than 130,000 others scattered across the country, moldering in team archives or stacked in sports writers' attics, each of them at risk of being thrown away forever. Retro Sheet had no funding. It had no institutional support. It was just one fan with an impossible vision: to save baseball's history before it disappeared. What happened next changed how we understand the game. Smith recruited a volunteer army that tracked down scorebooks, decoded Alan Roth's revolutionary 1950s stat sheets, and digitized millions of plays, all while refusing to charge a dime. Retro Sheet serves as a crucial resource for baseball research, offering data in various formats and reconstructing deduced games when information is incomplete. Their data is the foundation of nearly every bit of baseball analysis that's been published since the early 2000s, and it's the backbone of your favorite websites like Baseball Reference and Fangraphs. Retro Sheet is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose website currently features box scores of Major League Baseball games from 1906 all the way to the present day, and play-by-play narratives for almost every contest since the 1930s. It also includes scores from all Major League games played since the 1871 season, which was the inception of organized professional baseball, as well as every All-Star game, every postseason game, every World Series game, and even the East-West All-Star games and the World Series games of the Negro Leagues. Every play, every game, every season. For the first time in baseball history, it all exists in one place, and it's free for anyone to use. Retro Sheet is a work of love for everyone involved. There was never any intention of making money, and in fact, like this very podcast, the work actually cost everyone money at some time or another. Dave Smith paid for all the expenses alone for several years. Nevertheless, everything Retro Sheet has ever produced has always been free to the public for any use, even commercial uses. Always. How Retro Sheet saved baseball history is a story of people, not data. It's a story of dreams, not calculators or algebraic equations. Jay's is not a book of stats or analysis. It's a book which explains for the first time how a group of fans created a public resource previously unavailable anywhere. A work of mammoth proportions. How Retro Sheet Saved Baseball History is the story of how baseball's greatest preservation challenge became its most democratic achievement, and how it connected you to every game that's ever been played. And now that baseball season is finally upon us again, How Retro Sheet Saved Baseball History is the next book you should add to your summer reading list. If you want to learn more about Jay Wigley or more about the book, head to www.retrosheet-book.com. You'll be able to see exactly what's in store for you, and you'll even be able to order your copy today. That's retrosheet-book.com. On today's episode, I spoke with former All-American Girls Professional Baseball League player and women's baseball pioneer, Maybelle Blair. Maybelle Blair played in Chicago's National Girls Baseball League for the Cardinals in 1947 and was already an accomplished softball player before joining the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League's Peoria Redwings during the first part of the 1948 season. After an injury sidelined her, she returned to the NGBL's Cardinals team during the last part of the 1948 season. Maybelle then moved to California, where she attended Compton Junior College before enrolling at the Los Angeles School of Physiotherapy. After working at a treatment center in LA, she changed fields and began a 37-year career at Northrop Corporation in California. Maybelle started at Northrop as a chauffeur, but ended up as one of only 3 female managers and was the corporation's first female director of transportation. After her retirement, Maybelle became the vice president of the Center for Extended Learning for Seniors, which is an educational travel tours program provider for Elder Hostel. Even though her playing days have been over for decades, Maybelle's presence in baseball has remained constant. She is a huge advocate of Major League Baseball's annual Trailblazer series and has helped support Justine Siegel, who is the co-founder of the new Women's Pro Baseball League and the founder of Baseball for All, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to building gender equity for girls in baseball by providing access to opportunities to play, coach, and lead. For years, Maybelle served on the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League Players Association Board of Directors and was chair of its fundraising committee. She co-chaired 5 annual player reunions in the Palm Springs area along with her close friend, the late Shirley Berkovich, who played 3 seasons in the league from 1949 through 1951. It's a shame I missed the chance to sit down with Shirley to do an episode because she had some incredible stories from her own career, which, at different points, saw her play every position on the field besides catcher. Together, Maybelle and Shirley were advisors for the Amazon Prime series A League of Their Own, even making a cameo in the adaptation of the iconic Penny Marshall film from 1992. Maybelle is a founding director emeritus of Rockford, Illinois' International Women's Baseball Center, whose mission is to protect, preserve, and promote all aspects of women's baseball, both on and off the field. Even at 99 years old, Maybelle is still actively involved in fundraising and publicity efforts for the IWBC and for the AAG PBL reunions. In fact, that is exactly when and where Maybelle and I met and recorded this interview, at the 80th anniversary reunion in 2023 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That same year, Maybelle earned the inaugural Amazin' Mets Foundation Legacy Award, which is given annually to celebrate the people and organizations in the baseball community that are making a difference. In March of 2025, author and professor Cat Williams published a book on Maybelle called All the Way, The Life of Baseball Trailblazer Maybelle Blair. And today, Maybelle is the honorary chair of the Women's Pro Baseball League. Maybelle Blair's entire life has been about baseball, women's baseball, about playing it, preserving its history, and making it accessible to everyone. Maybelle has broken down countless barriers for women in the sport and continues to be a mentor for young girls who seek opportunities to play. Just last week, the Washington Nationals invited Maybelle to participate in the first pitch ceremony for their 2026 home opener against the Los Angeles Dodgers. As Maybelle likes to say, as long as she's still on this side of the dirt, baseball is going to be her life. Her legacy will live far beyond her playing days because the impact she's made for women in baseball will never be forgotten. One way we can be absolutely sure of that? In October of 2025, it was announced that as a part of the project which will see a $31 million transformation over the next 5 years of Bayer Stadium in Rockford, Illinois, the longtime home of the Rockford Peaches, the green space just north of the stadium was renamed Maybelle Blair Park. The goal of the 3-phase project, which was led by the IWBC, is to restore and modernize the century-old stadium while honoring its deep connection to the history of women's baseball. And as we've just mentioned, Maybelle has been a significant part of the fundraising efforts for this project. Phase 1 of the renovation of Bayer and the creation of Maybelle Blair Park will feature the Women's Baseball Gallery, a major outdoor exhibit consisting of commemorative pylons honoring the most significant achievements in the history of women's baseball. Phase 1 will also include the restoration of the historic main entrance ticket booth and visitor-friendly walking paths and recreation areas. The first round of Bayer Stadium renovations include new bleachers, new restrooms, field regrading and sodding, irrigation, electrical upgrades, dugout upgrades, a scoreboard, foul poles, batting cages, pitching areas, and a new press box. Phase 2 will be construction of the Museum and Education Center, which is projected to cost about $22.8 million. When it's complete, that facility will provide a space for exhibitions and youth programs. Phase 3, which is projected to cost $3 million, covers the artifacts and exhibits built inside the museum hall, highlighted by a restored Rockford Peaches World War II era team bus. And while the city of Rockford and the IWBC is thrilled to have broken ground, in this episode, we cover lots of ground. Maybelle tells us how, as a little girl in the 1930s, she and her family built a baseball field where they could all play. We find out what the girls and women who were a part of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League did after their playing days were over, or even just during the off-season. We learn how Maybelle has become an inspiration for the LGBTQ+ community since coming out at 95 years of age on stage during the Tribeca Film Festival in the summer of 2022. And we hear how Maybelle has continued to be a constant presence and an inspiration to the next generation of girls and women who have the chance to pursue a life and career in professional baseball thanks to trailblazers like her. With all of that information and much, much more coming at you, it may be helpful to follow along with the episode's liner notes on our podcast website. If you're new to the show, don't worry. You'll still be able to enjoy this episode without the extra help from the liner notes. But longtime listeners love the photos and links we put up on the website, which will give you a better understanding of the things Maybelle and I are discussing and provide some context when needed. The liner notes can be found on the My Baseball History website, which is online at www.shoelesspodcast.com. If you want to follow along, head to the website where you'll see the Maybelle Blair episode listed first on the main page under latest episodes. Click on that and you'll be ready to follow along. There's an embedded media player right on the page, so you don't have to have multiple windows open while you listen or fumble around with multiple devices. If you want to catch up on any of our earlier interviews, you can click on the tabs at the top of the website to go back through past episodes of any of our 4 previous seasons and see a full list of everything we have to offer so far. Everything in the liner notes goes in chronological order of how we talked about them in the interview, so you should easily be able to keep your place as you listen. After the interview, we'll do a recap of what you just heard, adding some extra insight and hopefully answering any questions that may have come up as you listened. I'll also explain how you'll have a couple chances to answer a trivia question to win a prize, so stick around until the end of the episode for that too. By the end of this episode, if you're still craving more stories about the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League told by a former player, you can dive into the My Baseball History archives and listen to episode 7 of season 3 with Ange Armato, who spent time playing with both the Rockford Peaches and the Kalamazoo Lassies. Among other topics, Ange and I reviewed how the league went through a number of different sets of rules, field dimensions, and equipment sizes and regulations throughout its history, essentially starting out as a softball league before slowly evolving into the authentic baseball league it's come to be known as. And we also discussed the names and accolades of some of the league's best players, many of whom Ange either played with or against. But now, here's my interview with former All-American Girls Professional Baseball League player and women's baseball pioneer, Maybelle Blair. You were born in Redondo Beach, California on January 16th, 1927, but your parents were both born in Texas. Your mother was part Irish and part Native American. She was the best female athlete in the county of Hamilton, Texas. She loved baseball too, and she rode horseback side saddle, but your father was a cowboy. Can you tell me about the Blair Nine?
Oh, yes. In Texas, there wasn't much to do other than ride horses and have ice cream socials and have a hoedown on Saturday night. So what else was there to do but play baseball? Mm-hmm. They had a Blair Nine, which was all my dad's brothers and his cousins, and they traveled all over Texas playing baseball. That's where the love of baseball came, was from my family.
Yeah. You had an older brother, Tommy, who was 7 years older than you, and Tommy was a pretty good ball player too, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. My brother was a wonderful ball player. In fact, at the National Baseball Congress during the war years in 1941, he went back there and played, and he made All-American. So he was a wonderful ball player, and they were going to sign him up, but naturally got hurt in the war, and that ended his career.
What is your earliest baseball memory?
I grew up baseball. I mean, it's just like people growing up eating. You can't remember eating your first bite. Well, I can't remember a first memory of baseball. I do know that I can remember, especially, we didn't have any fields in Redondo. All it was bean fields. There was nothing. And so we had to have a diamond to play with. So my father and his brothers and my brother and me, when I finally grew up, I don't know how old I was very little. They got an old mattress on behind the car or box springs or a gate. I can't remember what it was. Mm-hmm. And my brother got the old Model T Ford, and away we went trying to get that field even. You know, you had to have it smooth because you got to have a good field. And my brother get mad at me because I'd bounce up in the air because I was so light. So they put some more rocks and everything on the mattress or whatever it was. And we got that field just perfect.
That's great. Once a week, you would go to a ball game at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles to watch the minor league Angels play. What do you remember about those games and being in that stadium?
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget that team. It was Los Angeles Angels, they called them in that day. It was a AAA team for the Chicago Cubs. To me, I thought they were the most wonderful guys in the world. And I can remember my brother and I, it was the last dollar we had, but we'd lots rather go without food than not go to the ball game. Mm-hmm. So we'd argue and see who could see the lights first to see at Wrigley Field. And actually, I'd cheat a little bit and told him I see them first. I couldn't see them, you know. It was down on Avalon in Los Angeles. I can remember going to Wrigley Field, and in those days they had some of the hot dog stands outside the stadium. And I loved to walk down there, and I could smell that. Then I knew I was definitely at the ballpark. I couldn't get one because we couldn't hardly afford to get into the ballpark, but I got the odor of one, and I just loved that smell. And we walked in and got to see my Angels play.
Yeah. You started playing sports at 9 years old because Tommy played sports and you worshipped him. When he and his friends needed an extra body on the field or to pitch batting practice, that's when you were allowed to play. So what position did Tommy play? He was a pitcher, right?
He grew up practicing pitching. And I had to stand up there and be the batter, and my father, it's a wonder I wasn't killed. Absolutely, because my father, if I just moved a little bit, he'd stand in there, you know, and oh my God, my brother's going to kill me. But I stood in there like a Trojan and being the dummy and doing it, so that's what took place.
Uh-huh. Is that what you aspired to be or what you aspired to do? Or did you not see baseball or sports in general as a possible career path because you were a girl?
Oh, I didn't even think about it. No way we could even think about being able to play. I know I had to sit in front of the old radio, and I could keep box score when I was, mentioned by 6 or 7 years old. I had to learn, or they'd throw me in the ocean. Anyway, that's what I did. I kept scoring. While the boys were out practicing, I had to go out and report every inning who was ahead, the Angels or Seattle or San Diego Padres or whatever in those days.
Yeah. So you started playing organized softball on a local industrial team when you were about 12 years old. How did you find out about that league, and why were you allowed to participate in it at such a young age?
It was just a little industrial league there in Hawthorne, California. Basically, I loved to play softball, and the manager of Cheney's department store, he wanted to have a little team, so he saw me play and asked me if I'd play. My gosh, are you kidding? I took everything I owned, which was nothing, out to the ballpark, and I got to play softball, and I enjoyed every minute of it, naturally.
Yeah, of course. While you were still in high school, sometime around 1942 or 43, there was a semi-pro softball league which formed in Burbank, California. Did you have to try out for that league, or were you invited to play?
Oh, I was invited to that. I think it was called the Silverettes, and it was a lot of fun and some pretty darn good girl ball players.
Yeah, and then you started playing with the Pasadena Ramblers in a traveling softball league during the war. You used to play teams of servicemen at all forts and all the bases from Northern California all the way down to San Diego. You were still in high school at this time, so were those games played during the summer when you were on break, or were you missing school sometimes?
Oh, no, I never missed school. My mother wouldn't let me miss a day, and I wouldn't want to miss school because I was a rowdy in school, and I had my own team there at school. But it was during the summertime. We traveled from the south. And I got to tell you this one thing, when we were at Coronado Island in California, they had some German prisoners out there, and they could see the ball field, and they started razzing the guys because we were beating them, you know, and it was so much fun. We had a lot of fun. They'd take us to mess hall, and it was just lots of fun doing that.
Were you making any money on that team, or was it just for fun?
Oh, it was just for fun,
Yeah.
and, our travel expenses, wherever that was, they fed us. We didn't care because they'd pick us up in big great buses. We thought that was wonderful. We thought we lived and died and went to heaven.
Yeah. Yours was a team full of women, but you'd get to play at these military bases, and you'd play teams full of men. But those games weren't very competitive, were they?
Oh, are you kidding? Even the sailors or the Marines or Air Force, whoever we were playing, they wanted us to beat those guys so bad it was pitiful. And when they'd miss one or we get a run, they went wild. It was wonderful because they got so razzed.
Yeah, and you guys won most of those games.
Well, we won, our share of them,
Yeah.
and just a great memory that I'll never forget.
So there were actually plans for that team to travel overseas, but the war started picking up, so that trip was canceled. How long did you end up playing with the Pasadena Ramblers?
Golly, I can't remember exactly. I think it was a couple of years. I'm not for sure. Yeah, we were going to go overseas. We had already been measured for our uniforms and everything. Then the war heated up, and the USO decided that it's best that we not go. There's a little skeptical of that.
You were nominated as the best female athlete in your high school. Other than extracurricular softball teams, did you have opportunities to play sports on teams that represented your high school?
We had GAA. The only thing we did in those days was play each other at GAA. Mm-hmm. That was it, but I was able to play semi-pro basketball, which I did, and I loved that also.
Cool. So after you graduated high school, you went to Compton Community College, but this Chicago softball scout comes out to California to lure you to the Midwest. What kind of offer did they make? I mean, you were only, 19, 20 years old at the time, so...
Well, what it was, I had formed a softball team for Northrop Aircraft and was out playing, and I don't know how I found out when I was there. Anyway, he told me he wanted me to go play professional ball. And I said, nah, there's no way I could do that. My mother wouldn't let me go. Well, lo and behold, he followed me home, and he went in and started arguing with my mother about me playing. And he went on for about a half hour, and finally he said, Mrs. Blair, you don't quite get it. I'm going to pay your daughter $55 a week. My mother said, George, my father, go crank up the car.
Yeah.
I'm packing her suitcase, and she's on her way out of here. They couldn't hardly wait to get me on the train.
Yeah, $55 a week at that time was good money.
Oh, yeah, I'm making more than my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they promise you a starting spot on a particular team, or were they just asking you to come out and try out for the league itself? Like, did you have any assurances before you traveled halfway across the country?
No, not really. I just knew that I'd make it, and they knew it, so I didn't have any problem whatsoever.
Had you ever traveled outside of California before that?
I hadn't even been to India. No, I had been back to Texas. Other than that, no. We used to go back to Texas and ride horseback and all that a little bit when I was a little kid.
Cool. So you take this 2-day train ride to Chicago, but when you got there, then what? Like, did they set up housing for you? Were you in a hotel? What was the situation?
Yeah, they picked me up at the station and took me over to the hotel. And I was all by myself, and I never, ever spent overnight away from my mother and father, never. And so I was scared. I was a scaredy cat. So anyway, I pulled the dresser over next to the door, had my bat and my balls. Anybody dare come in that room, I was going to cold cock them, with those balls or hit them in the head with my baseball bat. I was there about 3 days before I got my roommate.
Mm-hmm. This was the first time that you'd ever really been away from home at all. So how did you handle that aspect of not only being a professional ball player, but then making sure that you were being a safe, responsible adult who would be ready to play every game?
Well, just like I said, I was just scared to death. But all of a sudden you start growing up. And it was quite exciting for me, and people naturally were looking out after me. But they didn't have to look too hard because, I know how to eat and dress myself and what have you. No problem.
Yeah. What size ball were you using in the Chicago Softball League? Was it 10 inches or 12 inches? Do you know?
I don't know. It was a regular softball. I don't know what size it was.
Yeah. And what about the bats? Were they made out of wood?
Yeah, always would. I don't think the metal came in until much, much later.
Yeah. So were the bats longer and thinner like softball bats, or were they like men's baseball bats?
Just regular baseball bats, as far as I know.
And what about when it came to cleats and gloves? Like, was there equipment that was available made specifically for women, or did you guys have to just buy men's equipment and deal with it?
We just had equipment. No, there was no way they had stuff for women or gloves or anything in our day. Nothing. It was just regular baseball equipment.
Yeah. What type of player were you? What were your biggest strengths as a ball player?
As a softball player, I wasn't a home run hitter. I was a line drive hitter. I thought I was pretty good. I don't really know. I loved it so much. I don't know. I was second baseman. I loved it. Basically, when I was a little girl, I tried to follow my brother. He played second, and I also played third. In fact, I could play the outfield too if I had to, but he played second and third, so that's what I played.
And I hear that you were really great at turning double plays.
Oh, I loved it.
What made you so good at it?
I don't know. I think there's a little skill to it with your feet and getting out of the way and being able to avoid a runner sliding in. To me, I think it's a little art.
Yeah.
That's why I love Pete Rose, and I thought he was great. There's so many great second basemen.
Yeah. Where did you generally hit in the batting order?
I was generally third or fifth or sixth.
Right in the heart of the order.
Right. I was a good hitter.
Were you a good base stealer?
No. It's hard stealing bases in softball. In baseball,
Right.
it's easier.
Yeah. The uniforms in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League famously included skirts instead of pants or even shorts like most other women's baseball and softball teams wore. What would happen when players would slide in those uniforms?
Oh, are you kidding? We had strawberries that went in because we didn't have sliding pads. And you didn't get on the DL list for 6 weeks because you had a little bruise, like the men do today. Chaperone would get you and sit you down and put some mercurochrome or iodine on it and get you back out there. I mean, just because you broke your fingernail, you didn't go on DL list for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Thinking you're dead.
Did that affect the way that you guys played? Like, would players slide head first more or decide not to try to stretch a single into a double because they didn't want to have to slide when they got to second base?
Oh, no. Any way we could get to the base safe. I don't care if it's upside down, walking in on our hands or sliding in, hook sliding or whatever. We was going to get safe.
When the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League started in Chicago, how did the players in your league find out about it? Like, was it publicized? Did they send scouts to lure players away? Were players being poached? How did that transition take place?
Players didn't know about it naturally until, I guess, the scouts and everybody, because especially out here in California, of course, we had a lot of good ball players from California go back. I don't know how they did it back east, but they had the scouts, and we had a fellow by the name of Bill Allington and Danny Rohr that was out here that was great managers and grabbed up the gals and away they went, and they started forming it, President Wrigley. That's the way it started and how I really don't know.
You played with the Chicago Cardinals in 1947 and 1948 before you hurt your legs. What happened? How did you get injured?
Well, in those days, we didn't have the training that they have today. We had training, but it wasn't intense, and I ruined my legs. Oh, it was terrible, and I was just down. I couldn't play. If you don't have your legs, you cannot play ball. That's what happened to me.
Did you have like a hamstring injury or?
Hamstring injuries.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and they would never cure.
Yeah.
And it was just terrible. It had no sense.
Yeah. That's right about the time when Max Carey scouted you and signed you to come play for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. Did he know that you were injured?
No.
The statute of limitations has passed. You can answer it truthfully now.
Yeah, no, he had no clue that I was injured whatsoever. I had a great arm.
Yeah.
And I thought I could fool him and what have you. But after that one game that I played, I couldn't get off the mound.
Yeah.
I couldn't move.
Is that why you pitched in Peoria instead of playing a position in the field because your legs weren't 100%?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because I didn't have to move. I could throw a ball. I could throw as hard as a ball as anybody. To this day, I can still throw it fairly well.
Yeah.
But I could not move. Oh, my God. Trying to get a butt, my God, they could butt me all day long, and I'd never get near the ball.
Did Max Carey represent the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League as a whole, or just the Peoria Redwings, or how did that work?
Oh, he was the president of the league.
Okay.
He was a wonderful guy. Absolutely loved him.
And so he was getting down and doing the scouting himself as well?
He scouted, but the scouts all reported to him, and he saw it, and then he went out and watched me play, and he wanted me, but he didn't realize I was injured.
Gotcha. So how did they decide that you would be sent to play for Peoria instead of one of the other teams?
I have no clue about that. I mean, that was their position. I think they needed pitchers, and that's where I was.
So you didn't have any say where you played?
No.
Yeah.
Nobody had any say where they played.
Did you?
It's just like in the major leagues, and that's terrible.
Yeah. What about when it came to negotiating power for how much you were being paid? Did you have any leverage there?
Oh, the girls, they were just happy to be paid.
Yeah. Gloria Ruiz, who is Cuban, was your roommate, but you also had two other Cuban teammates, Luisa Gallego and Georgiano Rios. I'm guessing that your team didn't employ interpreters for them. So did they have trouble communicating with the rest of the team?
My roommates didn't have any problem, but some of them did, but they learned on their own. I never heard any interpreters, no.
Jackie Robinson broke the Major League Baseball color barrier in 1947. Do you recall hearing people in your league talk about letting a black woman break the color barrier for you guys, or if they maybe felt pressure to do so?
Oh, no, and we didn't even know it. We didn't even think anything about it in our day. Yeah. Never even dreamed, one way or the other. But they were some great ball players. Yeah. I'll tell you, here in California, they had a black team from Compton men. They were good softball players. They're just good ball players, and just like the men are. They're wonderful, wonderful girls.
Yeah. So you only played in that one game coming in as a relief pitcher, and even though you were injured and only played in that one game, you still stayed with the team for the rest of the year and traveled with them and everything.
Right.
What kept you guys entertained during the long rides of all your downtime?
Oh, well, we always entertain, just like you get with any kids. I don't care if they're lawyers or doctors or what. You're going to find a way to entertain yourselves. Mm-hmm. And we did, too. Same thing on the bus. We sang. We had a good time. It was wonderful.
And you guys played poker?
Are you kidding? My folks thought I was going to send them home money. Little did they know their little Maybelle was flat broke, It was terrible. But we had a lot of fun, though, And that's what it's all about, is the fun and joy of life. And that's what I appreciate.
When you would send money back to your parents, physically, how would you do it? Would you write a check? Would you send like a Western Union? How did that happen?
Oh, they paid us by check.
Uh-huh. And
then we'd go cash it, naturally, just like you do, and have your money. And then we decided to play poker, and, and kept playing poker. And we had some pretty good poker players. I didn't know a thing about poker. We didn't even have a deck of cards in our house. Uh-huh. And then I learned in a hurry, a hard way. But I'm a good poker player now. You don't play with me now and think you're going to get my money.
Good, I won't. What were some of the rules that you had to adhere to when you were in the league? You said you had your chaperones.
And the main thing was bed check, when we were traveling mostly. And the lipstick, you had to wear lipstick. You'd get fined. When you were traveling, you had to be in a dress. But we always would roll up our slacks and put on a coat when it's 600 degrees outside. We got by that way. Uh-huh. There's always to get around, especially kids will always figure out a way to get around the rules. Yeah. And we did.
Yeah. Who was the best player in the league when you played?
Well, there were several, I thought. On my Peoria Redwings, Slats Myers was fantastic. Shortstop, Slats, that's after Marty Marion. Oh, she was good. I'll tell you, she saved a hit for me, boy. She ran back third base and picked up that ball. I didn't think she'd ever get to it. I kept, hurry, Slats, get that ball. Uh-huh. She did, and threw out the first. Oh, my gosh, she's so good. And Dorothy Doyle from Rockford Peaches, and Dorothy Kaminchak, Tex Lancey, the catchers, Doris Sams, outfielder. I could just sit here and name a whole group of them.
Yeah.
Great ball players.
Yeah. But those weren't the best ball players you ever saw in your life, right? That distinction belongs to a pair of switch-hitting sisters you played with in Bakersfield, Frida and Olympia Savona.
How did you know that?
I've done my research on you, Maybelle. There's a lot about you I know.
Oh, my God, yes.
Tell me about the Savona sisters.
I'll tell you, they were the most wonderful ball players you ever saw in your life. They could switch hit during batting practice, left-handed, right-handed, over the fence during batting practice. Not a problem, but they were unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they were the two best ball players I've ever seen for women.
Yeah. Even male professional ball players back then weren't making enough money to live completely off their baseball salaries. So what kind of off-season jobs did you and your teammates have to make sure that the money was still coming in?
Oh, well, anything you could get in our day, because in our day, you had to be a nurse, you had to be a teacher, or you had to be a secretary. So we only had three choices. But we'd pick up any little job you could get. Like I was a soda jerk, and that was fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. And all the girls were working clerks and things like that, or any job they could get.
So you got this great opportunity at Northrop Aircraft, and you decide that even if you do heal up in time for the next season, that was too good of a job to pass up. And that became your career. You were only 21, 22 years old at the time. Did you think, I've got the whole rest of my life to get a normal job and make money, but I might never have another chance to play baseball? So was that a difficult decision to decide what to do?
No, you know what? It's strange. I realized that baseball wasn't going to last because I just knew it. And I had this opportunity and I didn't want to pass it up because it was so hard for women. So I joined Northrop and had the most wonderful career a girl could ever dream of having.
Yeah, you started out as a courier, driving generals and presidents and heads of state all over. Why was your company interacting with those kinds of people in the first place? And who was the most famous person that you acted as chauffeur for?
Oh, gosh, you won't believe this, is Ronald Reagan. Yeah, he was wonderful. He came to the Northrop because he was rolling out the new F-5 aircraft, and he was there to, da-da-da-da-da-da, and that's who it was Ronald Reagan. I had Chappie James, I've had heads of states, I've had all sorts of people I transferred.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, this was a largely male-dominated workplace at the time. So what were the biggest challenges you faced because of your gender?
They were trying to let women be able to work, and it'd be nice to put them in a nice, cute little uniform, and away they go. That's what it was all about. It was very enjoyable, a lot of fun. I loved to drive anyway. My brother taught me to drive when I was about 10 years old, outside of my family, because they would have killed him. They knew that I was driving the car, oh my God. They didn't pretend like he was dead. And I'd see a car coming, I was pleading and crying and everything for him to wake up. I was afraid maybe I'd hit the car, But he kept an eye on me and I didn't realize it.
Yeah. Was there a shorthand way that players referred to the league? Like how players call Major League Baseball MLB or the Bigs or the Show? Was there a quick way that you would all refer to the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League? Because even the acronym AAGPBL, even that's kind of long and clunky. Was there a shorthand way that you guys all talked about it?
No, just talk baseball, that's all it was. It was baseball, baseball, baseball.
Yeah.
And we didn't worry about the whatever you call it, no.
The league lasted 9 seasons, but it was nearly completely forgotten until the release of the movie A League of Their Own. Did it feel like a fever dream to you? That there was this thing that you did that was so important to your life and so important for the country during the war, but after a certain amount of time, you would tell people about it and they would have no idea what you were talking about or anything like that had ever happened?
Well, they had no clue,
right?
Especially out here in the West Coast. They had no clue there was ever a league back there. Even then when they were playing, they had no clue. I bet you from outside of the Midwest, nobody knew it, going either direction. That I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know out here in California, nobody even had a clue there was a league. Not whatsoever.
Did you ever wonder, what was this all for? Or was it just a fun time in your life and you didn't care what it was all for?
I had no clue that, all I knew is I had a wonderful, wonderful time, and I got to realize something that I didn't think I was ever able to do because I was a girl. It was a dream that I never even had came true. That was what it was all about.
What do you think is the most important thing that sports can teach young girls and women?
It's not only for the girls and the women, it's for all kids. It teaches you in life how to get along with people, how to win and lose gracefully. You want to win. If you don't try to win, sit on the bench as far as I'm concerned. Get out of my way. But if you want to get out there and help, do your best, 110%, and that's all you ever ask of anybody.
Yeah.
And it teaches them to give and to take. It is the most wonderful thing for kids. And today, if I had my choice, I'd take all these cell phones away from all these kids and make them go out and play.
Yeah.
If they could come in and have the cell phones for a couple hours, but they would get back to their books and play. When you go out to a restaurant, and I see a whole family, mother, father, and all the kids sitting around eating on their cell phones instead of having a conversation.
Yeah.
It upsets me so much. I think America's losing a lot of their family traditions, and we need to get back to that.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, you made pretty big news by coming out and publicly announcing that you're gay. At what point in your life did you know that you were?
Probably senior in high school. Didn't realize it.
Yeah. So that's even another obstacle for you to overcome. Now, 2,000 miles from home. Did you have anyone you could confide in or share that with, or was that a burden you had to carry completely on your own?
It was a burden we had to carry on our own, because if you were ever caught being gay, you couldn't, especially the teachers, they couldn't teach. They couldn't hold jobs. We couldn't be in the service. They kicked the girls out and they found out they were gay. It was very frightening that you would, even with your family, you didn't know how they would take it. And till I was 96 years old. I didn't know how my family would take it.
Yeah.
But I thought I was okay because they loved me so much, I thought. And it all worked out wonderful.
Yeah,
and
good.
I'm happy I did come out because I've had a few young people come up to me and thank me immensely because they said it helped their lives with their families so very, very much.
Yeah, it's
and
important.
They thank me profusely.
Absolutely. You mentioned that playing in the league was a dream that you didn't even know that you could have. So how important do you think representation is for young girls, having things like the movie and the TV show, and just being able to easily watch women's sports on TV, whether that be WNBA games or women's soccer or college sports or the Olympics? How important is seeing women playing sports and succeeding in life?
Well, it's so wonderful because they're able to have a league of their own, not to try to compete with men, because women do love sports. They love to play. We can't compete with men. We don't want to compete with men. We can't run as fast. We can't jump as fast. We're just not built like men. But we love the game as well. We know the game as well, but we're not capable of playing it. So why can't we have a league of our own so we can participate? If you go to any stadium, you'll see as many women and their families out there. We love the game, backwards and forwards, just like today in the NBA and the football league, they have umpires.
Right.
And that's a harder game to umpire than a baseball game. But there's one thing us women do have that is just as good as a man. We have eyes.
Yeah.
And to be a good umpire, you have to have good eyes to see if the ball's on this side of the plate or that side. And we can do that as good as any man that ever put on glasses, or you don't need glasses to do that because we got 20/20 eyes. Mm-hmm. We can see it. We don't have to do it. So why can't we be umpires in Major League Baseball?
I think you should be. Why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
I believe way back when, now the doors are opening up. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong what I'm saying here now. The good old boys of the old baseball school didn't want to open it up. They thought it was too rough because the men were spitting tobacco and cussing and swearing and all that. This isn't a proper place for women. Mm-hmm. But things have changed.
Yeah.
And I think they have realized that now, that we don't have to put up with that. We can say you're out of here as fast as an umpire can. Mm-hmm. And the guys know that they wouldn't dare hit a woman. If they did, they'd never play baseball again. I think Major League Baseball has opened their eyes now, and I do believe that within the next year or the next year following, we will have a woman umpire. I know Jen is the top one right now. Mm-hmm. She just may make it here pretty quick.
Yeah, I hope so. The entire All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, not just one individual person or player. Was that kind of the way that the league was promoted while it was in existence? Like, not necessarily come out and see Doris Sams of the Muskegon Lassies or Gene Fout in the South Bend Blue Sox, but more like, hey, you guys miss professional baseball, right? Well, here's a way you can still come see ball played.
Well, if you remember the song, it's one for all and all for one. That's the way we went in, and that's the way we always wanted it.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to build a home in Rockford, Illinois for International Women's Baseball Center, where women can have a baseball facility all of their own for the cradle of women baseball. So when you mention baseball all over the world, and you mention baseball, they think of the Rockford Peaches. Well, I hated the Rockford Peaches, because they'd always beat everybody. But this is where it should be, where everybody, the whole world knows the cradle of women's baseball is Rockford, Illinois.
Yeah. Of course, it's a net positive for the league to be recognized at all, and we wouldn't have had movies or TV series like A League of Their Own without it. But do you think that honoring the league as a whole does a disservice to the individual players whose names we should know?
My opinion only. I do not believe our girls should be in the Hall of Fame as individuals. I'll tell you why, in my opinion. Joe DiMaggio, Pete Rose, Babe Ruth, they played years and years baseball to be able to have this honor. Mm-hmm. Well, if you realize that the first 4 or 5 years was nothing but softball, mm-hmm. and it didn't start baseball until 1948, and then after 51, a lot of the players went home, the good ball players, so you got, say, 52, 53, and 54, Anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I understand
Haven't put
that.
in the years to deserve to be there, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I do believe is we should have our own Hall of Fame. And that's what I would like to see in Rockford when we get our building up, is our own Hall of Fame to honor Sophie and Jean Fount and Dottie Kaminchak and Doris Sams and Snooky Doyle and a few of the others. These are the ones that I would like to see have the honor, because they were wonderful ball players.
Yeah.
Don't be wrong, we had some wonderful ball players, but I do not believe that we should be in the Hall of Fame because I don't think we earned it because we did not play long enough.
What did you have to give up in your own personal life to be a part of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League? Were there any sacrifices you had to make, either personally or professionally, to participate?
Listen, I would have given up my right arm to go play, so there was nothing. I mean, they did it for me.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for baseball and the All-Americans, I have been so fortunate in my life to represent them all over the country. People would have never known if that movie had not come out. And if it wasn't for Penny Marshall coming out with that movie, nobody would have known it, including you or anybody else.
Right.
That's the only thing that saved us, was actually the movie, because nobody even knew it. Even the families didn't hardly know it. They didn't realize it.
Why do you think it's important for girls to have the opportunity to play baseball as opposed to play softball?
Well, here's my opinion. Again, softball's a wonderful game. And when Title IX came out and opened it up for scholarships, what was it for? Softball. So naturally, if I was a parent or anybody trying to put a child through school, my gosh, college, and you get a free education playing softball?
Yeah.
My gosh, what a great opportunity. But there was no baseball. So this is why it was so important that we have baseball and softball. So many girls actually wanted to play baseball, but they couldn't because they played softball. So my feeling is that they should have their choice. If you want to play baseball, there's the opportunity to play baseball. And girls want to play softball, more power to you. Play the game you loved. I love both of the games, but if I had my choice, I would play baseball because I was raised baseball.
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to speak about?
The only thing I would like to say is that we're trying to develop the International Women's Baseball Center in Rockford, Illinois, for not only the United States, but the international women's baseball, because there's so many wonderful women out there all over the world playing baseball. And right now, Japan is the top baseball. Now, can you believe that, taking baseball from our country?
Yeah.
And they start in grade school actually teaching baseball. And they're giving their girls this chance. But we're coming along, and finally, I think the United States is waking up that girls do love to play baseball besides softball. So give them the choice, and we will be there. We will be number one, and I'm hoping this coming next year, we'll be number one again.
Yeah. How do you think people should best support women's baseball in America? Is there places in particular they should be giving their money or giving their attention or just promoting on social media? What are the best ways to help grow the game?
Social media is a wonderful way. But to really help IWBC is you go to IWBC International Women's Baseball Center, they have a little red button there. So if you want to donate, press that, press 1, and then add a bunch of zeros behind it. But we will take every dollar you want to donate because we want to get this center up, and I'd love to see it before I'm on the other side of the grass.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I know your schedule has been busy this week, so the fact that you carved out some time to sit down means a lot. So thank you very much.
Well, I sure hope I helped. I don't know.
You did. You did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maybelle. If you think this episode has been worth even $1, please click the donate button in the upper right corner of our website, shoelesspodcast.com. That is a direct link to my PayPal profile where you can make a donation in any amount. If you don't have PayPal and want to send a donation through Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, or any other platform, shoot me an email at shoelesspodcast@gmail.com and I'll send you directions for whichever method you prefer. No amount is too small. It all adds up to allow us to keep creating this content for you year after year. And now it's time for a segment called What'd You Think, Mom?, where we talk to my mom, who just listens to the interview with me, and we ask her what she thinks. This is my real, actual mom. Her name is Lori, but I've always just called her Mom. Can you say something to prove that you are my mom?
I'm going to say something that proves I'm still so your mom. We've talked about Mother's Day in the previous year and going to Rockford to go see where the Rockford Peaches played and go to Buyer Stadium and check all that out. We've talked about a previous lifetime going to Comiskey Park and seeing Nancy Faust play. And Mother's Day of 2025, we went to Comiskey Park on Mother's Day to go see Nancy Faust play again, and it was great. So I'm sensing a thread through all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to Mother's Day 2026 and see what we can come up with.
I don't have any plans for that.
Get on it, man. Let's go.
All right. One housekeeping thing before we start. Maybelle talked about Jen Powell and how she would soon become the first female umpire in Major League Baseball history. Maybelle and I recorded this interview on August 5th, 2023. Jen was the 7th woman to work as a professional baseball umpire, but she did become the first female umpire in Major League Baseball history when she debuted August 9th, 2025. She was the first base umpire in the first game of a doubleheader between the Marlins and Braves at Truist Park in Atlanta that day, and then the third base umpire in the second game of the doubleheader. And then the following day, on August 10th, 2025, Jen became the first female home plate umpire in an MLB regular season game. But another thing that Maybelle and I didn't talk about in this interview because it hadn't happened yet when we spoke is the new Women's Pro Baseball League, which was co-founded in 2024 by former Major League Baseball coach Justine Siegel and owner of the Intercounty Baseball League's Toronto Maple Leafs, Keith Stein. That league was announced to the public in October of 2024, and within 24 hours of player registrations opening, over 400 players from the U.S., Canada, Japan, and the United Kingdom had registered. Tryouts were held in August of 2025 at Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. to determine the 130 eligible draftees, and they were selected from what turned out to be more than 600 registered players. The inaugural 4 teams were announced in late October of 2025, and the first draft was conducted virtually in November of 2025. Kelsey Whitmore was the first pick in the draft, selected by the team representing San Francisco, and friend of the show Ashton Lansdale was drafted 7th overall by the team representing Los Angeles. There's also a team representing New York and one representing Boston. Those make up the 4 teams. Maybelle serves as an honorary chair for the league, which has no association with Major League Baseball. That's a decision that was made to preserve both its independence and its women-led organizational structure. Robin Roberts Stadium in Springfield, Illinois will serve as a neutral site venue for all the games played during the inaugural season, which is scheduled to run from August 1st, 2026 through mid-September and consist of 30 regular season games followed by playoffs. So pretty big news there, and that's been exciting to watch evolve over the past year and a half or so. So just want to get all that out there. The Women's Pro Baseball League will be the 5th American Women's Professional Baseball League to exist, after the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, which ran from 1943 to 1954 in the Midwest, the National Girls Baseball League, which ran from 1944 to 1954 in Chicago, the International Girls Baseball League, which operated during the winter of 1952 into 1953 in Miami, and the Ladies Professional Baseball League, which operated in California and Arizona in its inaugural season in 1997, before expanding into New York, New Jersey, and Florida in its final year of 1998. So, lots of big news. Pretty cool to be able to announce that as part of this Maybelle Blair episode.
Definitely.
And with all of that being said, what did you think of the Maybelle Blair interview?
I think listening to Maybelle describe her journey, it gives a great overall view of the timeline of how we got to make these announcements that you just read through right now. And listening to her talking about being the weight on a box spring as they're trying to literally drag the field. That image that I had in my head as she was talking about that was kind of a dusty scenario, of course, and being a slice of Americana in the 1930s and 1940s out in California in the dust fields out there. And that was just a cool image. And then you keep on going and listening to her tell different stories about what she encountered as a woman, as a girl. It would not be surprising to realize how many women today, and always, she's one of them, so it goes back, how many women develop a love of sports because they have an older brother who either needs another body to throw at or another body to shoot a hockey puck at. That would be me. And you look up to your older brother, you idolize your older brother, you'll do whatever it takes to be part of that world. And next thing you know, you're a sports fan for that sport and playing it in your own right. That's just really a cool thing.
Yeah. Maybelle talked about the Los Angeles Angels or Seattle or the San Diego Padres and going to see them play when she was a little kid. But back then, none of those teams were major league teams. Major League Baseball hadn't expanded out west yet. You know, the Dodgers and Giants moved to California in 1958. So this was the Pacific Coast League, and the teams all had the same names. It was the Seattle Rainiers. They weren't the Mariners yet, but a professional baseball team in Seattle, and then the teams that we know today as Los Angeles Angels and San Diego Padres. But that's not who she's talking about. It was a totally different league. Maybelle talked about knowing the smell of a ballpark because of the hot dogs and having that memory just flood back. As soon as she'd smell that smell, she'd like, oh, it's baseball time.
Right.
It's so funny how smells can bring back such strong memories. And before our interview, I asked Maybelle, is there anything I can bring for you? You know, because she was traveling. We did this interview in Kenosha, Wisconsin, while the U.S. Women's National Baseball team was on their trip. They played a game at Bayer Stadium in Rockford, and then they played one in Kenosha to get ready for the tournament that they were about to play in Canada. And so Maybelle's on the road. And I was staying at my aunt and uncle's house near Rockford, so I had a car and I had access to grocery stores and I could get her whatever she wanted. She asked me to bring her one thing, peach-flavored beer. So I brought her a 6-pack of Busch Light Peach, which was popular that summer and incredibly fitting for the peaches. But it's just so funny that, like, hot dogs and beer and, like, that's baseball.
That's baseball, baby.
That's Maybelle. You know, like, she's just, that's who she is. Literally, she could have answered anything. She wanted peach-flavored beer.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that set the tone for me for this interview that, like, I'm going to come in and ask her questions and she's going to give me responses. You know, she didn't hold back on anything, and it was just funny to watch her kind of wheels turn as I asked her some of the difficult questions and asked her things about her own life. And I was glad that she was as open and honest with me as she ended up being.
Yeah, I hope that if I live to be 96, I'm as feisty as she still is, and I'm asking for peach-flavored beer somewhere.
Yeah, she's going to be 100 next year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
She talked about going to see the Wrigley team at Wrigley Field, and also talked about playing on Coronado Island when she was playing against military teams and the other military people, whether they were sailors or whomever, cheering the girls on because they wanted to see their buddies get beat by girls. But when she said Coronado Island and talking about the Wrigleys, it just made me think of Catalina Island and the Wrigley presence there. I was lucky enough to go to Catalina Island a couple of years ago with a cousin. We were kind of retracing my parents' honeymoon steps with her parents, and we went into the Catalina Island Casino, which the word casino did not have the meaning it does today. It is a gambling place. It just meant a large entertainment venue, and William Wrigley built that. It's a two-story thing. There's an amazing theater that has all kinds of really modern inventions going on in it when it was built in the 1920s. But then the top floor is this huge space that has no pillars within the space of it. It's all architecturally sound that would hold 3,000 dancers. And the next question became, how do we move 3,000 people up and down in case of safety, but also just moving people? And he thought of Chicago's very own Wrigley Field and ramps and said, that's what we do. So they put in the ramps like Wrigley Field, carpeted them, pinkies up, let's go. There you are. So that was just kind of a cool thing. I never realized until I visited California the impact that Wrigley had. Of course, Wrigley is a huge name in Chicago with the Wrigley Building, and that's where they were based. But once that wealth came, then he was out there doing some amazing things as well.
And the person behind the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League.
I love how it comes around full circle, right?
Yeah. It's been interesting over the past few years to follow some of the girls and women on the U.S. Women's National Baseball team on social media and seeing how much they all love and respect Maybelle. Everyone from Ashton Lansdale and Danae Benitez to Kelsey Whitmore, who frequently post pictures with Maybelle, some of which were taken like a decade ago at this point. But that's the thing that's so impressive to me about Maybelle is she's everywhere, all the time, all over the country. She's at events in Florida and in California and in Illinois. And like we talked about, I interviewed her in Wisconsin for this. She's been the face of the IWBC, which is the International Women's Baseball Center in Rockford, Illinois, and of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And she's raising money for causes relating to women's baseball. She travels more and is at more events than people half her age. And I don't know how she does it at 96 or
Seriously.
86 or 76. I mean, I'm 39 and I don't want to travel as much as she does. it is really impressive to see not only how much she does and how often she does it, but how energetic she is whenever she's wherever she is.
Right. We need to get our acts in gear and ramp up our game here, man.
You need to start drinking some peach-flavored beer.
Let's go. She mentioned that the movie really made such a difference that the league that Wrigley started wouldn't have been as well known. You know, family members didn't even know about it. And the movie brought all that to the forefront and brought it back up. And so I think that not only did it make awareness just in general about that league, but then it opened the doors to be where we are today to, again, go to the announcements. And
Well, when I was doing the research about the other women's professional baseball leagues that have existed, it specifically said that the ladies professional baseball league, the one that started in 97 and ended in 98, that was formed based on the popularity of the movie, and that there was this groundswell of support and people had this interest in women's baseball. So that's why they started that league at that time. So yeah, absolutely. The representation matters. And I think the state of women's sports right now with Caitlin Clark and all these young girls and women having actual role models, to like specific people to look up to, not just the general idea of professional women. Like, no, there's this girl I can look up to, and there's this woman who I want to be like. You got to strike while the iron's hot. That's, I think, the good timing of this women's pro baseball league that's starting, and hopefully it turns into a success and can keep going. But I mean, I remember growing up in the 92 Olympics having the dream team make basketball a global thing. And then the 96 Olympics, the women's team was like a big story too. And you had Cheryl Swoops and Dawn Staley and like all these people. And then immediately they come back and that, you know, the WNBA starts. And now here we are 30 years later.
right.
And I don't know if it's going to be that same kind of thing with this women's professional baseball league, but all it takes is one spark and one person to have an idea and be able to execute it. And so hopefully, you know, with this league having people like Kelsey Whitmore be a part of it, who has played in men's leagues and has social media presence, and people like Monet Davis, who was in the Williamsport Little League World Series years ago and threw a no-hitter. You know, she's part of this league too. Like having these big names who people already know, already are aware of, and then you're going to be drawn to watch them and see, oh, there's a bunch of other players who are really good. And from all over the world, it's not just Americans. It's Japanese players and Korean players and Canadian players and Australian players and people from the UK, like Mexico. A ton of different countries are represented in this league. So I hope that there is a way that these games can be viewed easily, so people who can't make it to the games in Springfield will still have a way to watch this league take shape and grow over the year.
Right. You've seen it happen with different things. I want to just say, going back to the basketball side of it and how women's basketball took off, living in South Carolina for 15 years, it was great to see the coverage in South Carolina with the women's basketball team. And Dawn Staley, I mean, she was it.
Yeah.
You know, very well respected and very well covered, and that was the key. And so I agree with you with getting the games out there, these new games coming up, having them be available to be watched. There's so many ways to do that in today's media. So I hope they do take advantage of that, because all you need is to have that feed go into homes where there are young girls, and it's like, maybe I could do that, or maybe I want to do that, or I love watching baseball, maybe I want to be able to play it and raise the awareness up.
And I think it also helps to have kind of one centralized location where people can think like this is the home of women's baseball. And so Rockford is really trying to position itself as that. And rightfully so. You know, you've got the history there with the Rockford Peaches, and
Absolutely.
Bayer Stadium is still in existence. And that's one of the tough things about Major League Baseball history, is that all of these old stadiums have been torn down for the most part. You have Wrigley Field and you have Fenway Park, which are the two biggest tourist destinations in terms of baseball stadiums in the country.
Right.
And I think it's partially because of all the history there. People want to be a part of that. Well, all the other stadiums have been torn down. You know, the next oldest stadium is Dodger Stadium, which is a little over 60 years old at this point, which is old, but that's not an ancient, you know, that's not historic.
Right.
But Bayer Stadium is still around. And so you have this place where you can go and connect the dots from the history to today and say this multi-championship winning team played here, and the U.S. women's national team played there a couple of years ago. Like, they have had this through line. And now you've got the IWBC. They're trying to build their own facility in Rockford. It was just announced on February 25th, 2026, that the city of Rockford, the home of the Rockford Peaches of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, will host the 10th edition of the Women's Baseball World Cup Finals in July of 2027. The games of the 6-team tournament are scheduled to be held July 19th to the 25th of 2027 at Bayer Stadium. So that's pretty cool that they have this place that can host these things and, again, connect the dots back to the history and have people come and think, like, when you think of baseball and baseball history, like, one of the things you think of is Cooperstown. And if Rockford is starting to position itself that way and these facilities are being built and restored and preserved, you know, we went to Midway Village in Rockford and they've got this museum that has all sorts of Rockford history, but a large portion of it is related to the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League and specifically the Rockford Peaches. So, like, there are all of these different things that you can do in Rockford relating to women's baseball and women's baseball history. And I think that's important too, because if you've got one thing in Rockford and one thing in Chicago and one thing in St. Louis and one thing in Peoria, nobody's going to go to all of them. But if you can say, hey, we got it all right here. Just come make one trip to Rockford. We're going to have everything you need. I think that will help grow the game too.
And she called it, when she called Rockford, the cradle of women's baseball. I mean, that captures it right there. Again, I think this all comes about, I'm going to say, because of the movie. I've been going to Rockford for many years, 45 years at least, and been all over Rockford. And in all that time before the movie, never knew its historic significance in terms of women's baseball. It was really cool to go to Bayer Stadium a couple of years ago. It was in great shape. It had great info boards and all that. But now to see these events roll through where you can actually see baseball being played by women,
and high-level baseball.
Right.
It's not just some local softball team or, you know, local Little League team. Like, this is a world-class tournament is going to be held there. That's big news.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I hope that we get to travel to see some of that stuff. It would be really cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting when she was talking about how she felt about individual women being inducted into Cooperstown. You and I have had this discussion as well about softball versus baseball, and it's a Baseball Hall of Fame, and it was enlightening to see she kind of thought the same way that we were thinking. I very much enjoyed going to Cooperstown and seeing the women's section, more or less, and would love to see that grow. I'm sure we will see it grow. But at the same time, it was wonderful to see the whole league be inducted and give that recognition, because when she talked about different things that she and the other women had to go through on and off the field, they really broke ground there. And they were the forerunners to what's coming now. I think it was a good move to have that whole league inducted at the same time. And I do agree with her that maybe individual players, as great as they were, there might be another venue for them to be honored for their greatness.
Yeah, and hopefully that gets built soon. One thing that was cool in Cooperstown was seeing the personal connections that we have with people.
Yeah.
Nancy Faust was represented and Perry Barber was represented, and just seeing the care and the intentional collection of modern women's baseball things at the Hall of Fame. Like when Kelsey Whitmore played in the men's league, they got her jersey in there. They're actively going after things like Alyssa Nakin was a coach for the Giants, and so they got her batting helmet that she wore on the field. All these little things that they are clearly making the attempt to document and preserve and display these pieces and, you know, lift up women's baseball and women's sports as well. So to see those things at Cooperstown and at the Hall of Fame, and every time you go, they've got rotating exhibits, especially on the third floor. It's like the modern area where each team has their own separate locker that has unique items in it. And there's this one display called Today's Game, which is just a constant rotating exhibit of whatever the latest thing is. There's always something new and always something women's related in there that wasn't there the last time I was there. You know, not like I'm going every week, but I've been there 6 times in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's always something different every single time. So it's cool to see that. And like I said, it is clearly an intentional effort on the Hall of Fame's part to get women's stuff in that display case.
Great. Love to see it.
All right. I'll see you in Rockford or in Springfield or
Definitely,
both.
Yeah, definitely Springfield.
Yeah. So Springfield will be this upcoming summer.
Yeah.
And then Rockford will be next year.
Okay. Rockford next
2027.
year. We're coming, baby.
Cool. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, so that's it. In the introduction of this episode, I mentioned how there are a handful of ways for you to follow the podcast online. In addition to liking, subscribing, and giving My Baseball History a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app, please make sure you're also following us on Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram, where we are at Shoeless Podcast on each platform. By following us there, you'll get some bonus content throughout the month, including daily posts detailing an important event which happened on this day in baseball history. You'll also be able to interact with us to let us know what you think of the show. If you're a fan of some more long-form posts, you can sign up for Clearing the Bases, our email newsletter, by heading to shoelesspodcast.substack.com. We publish 2 newsletters a month, which allow us to talk about lots of things we don't normally talk about on the show. I use that space to talk about the podcast, of course, but I also use it to write about baseball road trips I go on, to publish research I do, and to speak on current events in baseball, all of which are things I don't really do in episodes of My Baseball History. Look for a new issue to be published on the second Friday and the fourth Friday of every month. If you have questions about the podcast or research you'd like to contribute to a future newsletter, submit something through the contact form on our website or email us at shoelesspodcast@gmail.com. Before the interview with Maybelle, I mentioned a trivia question you can answer to win something. And here's how you can do that. First, make sure you're following us on Twitter or Blue Sky at Shoeless Podcast. Then, find the pinned post at the top of our profile with the link to the Maybelle Blair episode, which asks this episode's trivia question. The answer to the trivia question was somewhere in the episode you just finished listening to. Quote that post along with your answer, and you'll automatically be entered. We'll pick one person who answered correctly, and they'll win a copy of All the Way, The Life of Baseball Trailblazer Maybelle Blair by Cat D. Williams, which tells Maybelle's incredible life story of how she broke down barriers for women in baseball and continues to be a mentor for young girls who seek opportunities to play. Featuring extensive insight from interviews with Maybelle, All the Way brings to life the struggles and triumphs of female ballplayers in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, as well as the struggles they continue to face today. It also provides an honest look at the dangers that mid-20th century lesbians faced and how coming out, even at 95 years of age, can be empowering. We'll reach out to the winner before the next episode of the podcast goes live. You don't have to be the first person to answer, you just have to answer correctly. But make sure you're actually following us on your preferred social media platform or your entry won't be counted. In the introduction to this episode, I mentioned Jay Wigley's new book, How Retro Sheet Saved Baseball History. And I talked a little bit about Retro Sheet then, but there's just so much more to say about its significance. And not only that, but Jay's book and Retro Sheet in general has direct connections to at least 8 previous guests on My Baseball History. In Season 1, we spoke with author Phil S. Dixon during Episode 4. Phil has helped contribute a significant amount of Negro Leagues research to the Retro Sheet, and some of his recent activity is actually covered in Chapter 15 of Jay's book. In Season 2, we spoke with Sean Hearn during Episode 3. Sean is the executive director of the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, and is a Retro Sheet contributor. In Season 3, we spoke with Jacob Pomrenke during Episode 1. Jacob is the director of editorial content at the Society for American Baseball Research and the chairman of SABR's Black Sox Scandal Research Committee. There are connections between SABR and Retro Sheet all over Jay's book, but I also know that behind the scenes, Jacob specifically was instrumental in helping locate both people and SABR-related archival material while Jay was doing research for the book. And in the final episode of Season 3, we spoke with Stu Thornley, who is the leading historian of Minnesota sports, including the St. Paul Saints. Stu is a Retro Sheet volunteer, and if you'll excuse me bearing the lead here, as the official scorer of the Minnesota Twins, Stu is uniquely qualified to be a contributor of scored games to the Retro Sheet archive. In Season 4, we spoke with Bob DiBiasio during Episode 8. Bob is the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Cleveland Guardians, and has been a public relations executive with Cleveland for all but one season since 1979. Jay interviewed Bob for his book, and Bob was a key figure in getting Cleveland Indians and Guardians games shared with Retro Sheet. And in the final episode of Season 4, we spoke with Josh Rowich, who is the president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. The Hall of Fame is responsible for well over 10,000 games in Retro Sheet's collection. In Season 5, we spoke with Larry Lester and Stephanie Liscio during Episode 1, which I mentioned earlier as the live taping in front of an audience at League Park, which Jay came all the way to Cleveland for from Knoxville, Tennessee. Larry Lester's research has played an enormous role in building the Seamheads database, which has subsequently played a huge role in building the Retro Sheet database. And again, Jay talks about Retro Sheet and the Negro Leagues in Chapter 15 of his book. And finally, in our most recent episode, which was the 6th of Season 5, we spoke with Adam Dorowski, who is the Executive Director of Design at Sports Reference, and a Negro Leagues and Latin American baseball historian who's focused on the intersection of statistical analysis and historical preservation. Other than Negro League games, Baseball Reference relies on retrosheet data for all other MLB games. In addition to indirectly benefiting from Retrosheet's work by constantly using baseballreference.com for research and liner notes for this podcast, I have directly used Retrosheet countless times in my own research over the years. One of my favorite things about Retrosheet is that it gives you the ability to look at the standings for every day in baseball history, essentially. Baseball Reference will show me the box score from the August 11th, 1912 game between the Cleveland Naps and the New York Highlanders, during which Shoeless Joe Jackson became the first American League player to steal home twice in one game. It'll even show me the other final scores from that date, with links to those box scores and their game breakdowns. And today, there's also a link you can click to be able to see what the standings were at the conclusion of play on that date. But for years, it seemed like the only place I could find that information was on Retrosheet. So they've always held a special place in my heart because, for years, they helped me do research I wasn't able to do anywhere else. Retrosheet is an all-volunteer organization which is always looking for more volunteers, and it's something that you can do from your home. If you would like to help with any of this work, you can reach out to Retrosheet's president, Tom Thress, at tthres@retrosheet.org. That's TTHRESS at retrosheet.org. Another way to support the incredible work being done at Retrosheet is by making a donation, which you can do on their website, retrosheet.org, or by clicking on the link I put in the liner notes if you're following along. And remember, Retrosheet is funded entirely by donations, so if you can spare it, every bit helps. And it doesn't just help them, it helps me, it helps you, it helps anybody who is ever trying to do baseball research. This is the 43rd episode of My Baseball History, and I was just able to rattle off 8 different people who have been guests on the show who have direct ties to Retrosheet and Jay's book. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about this community. It may seem huge, like there are millions of people who make it up. I mean, if you go to a baseball game, there might be tens of thousands of people there. Or if you go to the Sabre convention in the summer, there's going to be several hundred people. But it's like the 6 degrees of separation thing, where you're really never more than a phone call or two away from being directly connected to the right person for whatever you're trying to research. And if you need me to be one of those phone calls, I'm happy to be that for you. I look at the stats of this podcast after every episode, and I know that each episode I've got a few thousand people listening. The numbers have stayed pretty consistent for the past few years. So if you're here, this is most likely not your first episode listening. You are my friend. If you need my help, I am happy to give it to you. And I might not be the most knowledgeable person about the topic you're specifically trying to research, but chances are I either know the person who is, or I know somebody else who knows that person. If you're a fan of this podcast, you're clearly a fan of baseball history. And if you're still listening at this point in this episode, I'm guessing you've probably enjoyed a number of the episodes with the past guests I just mentioned. But if their connection to Retrosheet still isn't enough to convince you that Jay's book is worth your time, I'm going to give you a gift that you have earned by sticking around this long. And I could have mentioned this at the top of the episode, but sometimes you just have to make people work for a reward. Right now, if you go to Jay's website, www.retrosheet-book.com, you can read 3 sample chapters completely free. You'll also see links to order the book from your favorite bookseller, and later this baseball season, the website will have additional materials not included in the printed book that you'll want to see too. But for now, make sure you go to retrosheet-book.com or click the link in the liner notes if you're following along right now on shoelesspodcast.com. Don't forget, it's a huge help when you rate and review My Baseball History wherever you listen to the podcast. 5-star ratings help our show get featured on more people's suggested podcast pages, which means that more people will have a chance to discover it. It just takes a couple seconds of your time, but it really helps us a lot. And of course, liking us on social media, interacting with our posts, and sharing things with your friends or family is great too. Feel free to send this episode to anyone in your life who loves baseball or women's sports in general. Hopefully they'll enjoy it, and maybe they'll even learn a thing or two. But no matter how you choose to support us, even if it's just by listening, we appreciate you being here. Until next time, I'm Dan Wallach, and this is My Baseball History.